2021 saw a return to some form of normalcy, not just in the real world, but in the video game industry as well.
While we had some delays from the big studios due to the ongoing global pandemic, this year saw a slew of indie games step up and drop some stellar experiences alongside industry mainstays.
With our own foray into interactive media finally being revealed this year, we'd like to celebrate and applaud game creators and publishers big and small for their contributions during this period of global recovery. And now, for our 5th annual edition of Digital Era Entertainment's list of the best games of the year.
Once upon a time, World War II shooters were so overdone that even Call of Duty made the jump to modern warfare. Thankfully, the folks at Team 17 know a thing or two about war. They made the Worms games, for example, and began a major effort to redesign how to approach World War II shooters. Kicking off this year's top 10 with the fury of, well, Hell Let Loose. Hell Let Loose focused on standard first-person shooter mechanics inside wide-open maps of 50 versus 50 players, complete with a unique strategic resource-based metagame. It's gritty, intense, and downright white-knuckle inducing to play through, and at the end of the day, you're treated to one of the best tactical shooters ever created.
Look, we're just as surprised as you are by how good this game wound up being after how poorly implemented and received the Avengers game turned out to be. Thankfully, Eidos Montreal was spared being forced into making this a looter shooter of sorts, stuffed with hard microtransactions, and instead were able to focus on just making a damn fine game. By cleverly disguising an action RPG within a third-person adventure game, Guardian served up a delicious onslaught of gameplay, music, and graphics to produce a game that kept it simple and delighted us all. Staying on the topic of awesome sci-fi action adventure games, we have Insomniac's beloved non-Marvel mascots dropping in at our number 8 spot. Being the first true next-generation title for the PlayStation 5, Rift Apart cemented itself as the AAA game that was the reason to own a PS5. It had an entertaining narrative, diverse worlds that could be flown to in an instant, and all with unique visual appeal and the great gameplay to be not just a system showcase, but also one of our picks for the best games we've played this year.
One of the brilliant things about indie developers is that they can hone their craft and refine the games they make, delivering amazing experiences time and time again. Acid Nerve first delivered us Titan Souls, which saw a mix of Legend of Zelda and Dark Souls gameplay aesthetics with the standard pixelated visuals we normally associate with indie games. Now, 6 years later, the small studio gives us their sophomore effort that sees more of that formula that made them renowned, but fine-tuned to near perfection with Death's Door. On top of the fantastic gameplay, the game also serves up a more somber yet comedic story as you quest for your lost soul and take on gargantuan bosses in this pseudo-sequel to Acid Nerve's breakout work.
The open world genre, a noted favorite of ours since the beginning of the D-Core branch of Digital Era Entertainment, is becoming this gen's mainstay as many of this year's offerings tried to tap into the power and new technology available to the newest consoles and computer GPUs. Imagine our surprise then when something like Sable came along, an open world exploration game that's equal parts Journey and Nintendo's Breath of the Wild, but developed by two people. It's an amazing game to experience. Featuring a unique visual style and a focus on storytelling through those same visuals and exploration, it presented an all-around elegant effort of an experience. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Juggling two open-world games in a Game of the Year listing would make it tough for us to determine which of the two would rank higher on it, right? Nope. In fact, it was super easy, barely an inconvenience. Forza Horizon 5 peeled out of the corner and appropriately into our 5th spot with the ease of an arcade racing drift turn. Year in and year out, one of the most important criteria of open world gaming for us here at Digital Era Entertainment has been whether or not the game lets players truly go anywhere and do anything. While Sable was impressive on its own, the narrative within the game does force you to head into areas so that it presents a cohesive metaphorical tale through visual representation. Meanwhile, Forza Horizon 5 offers things to do while allowing a greater depth of freedom when it comes to tackling its near-endless array of activities, all while experiencing an equally endless sense of exploration, in between letting you yeet yourself off of majestic Mexican landscapes with reckless abandon in expensive vroom vrooms.
The Life is Strange games have been rather hit or miss while under original developer Don't Nod, so new developer Deck 9 had a large hurdle to clear as they went to tackle their entry in the popular adventure game series. They accomplished this with an incredibly likable main character in Alex Chen, played wonderfully by Erica Mori, and a gripping thriller of an affecting story that prominently features themes such as loss and a sense of belonging among its central messages. Technically sound all around in the departments that cover the game aspect of this title, Life is Strange True Colors makes the case for how adventure games should tell their story going forward and how the genre can evolve in today's generation.
Nintendo often becomes a sleeping giant when it comes to video games and their releases. When the Nintendo Switch came out, the Big N was content to churn out release after release during the initial launch of the system, and as time went by, the all-too-familiar feeling of Nintendo drought began to creep in. They've certainly thrown a bone here and there, but nothing that matches the initial launch effort. I mean, sure, there was Pokemon this and Pokemon that, but for the average gamer, something more was needed. Indie devs began to throw their own hat into the ring by taking Nintendo concepts and putting their spin on it. And soon enough, the sleeping giant would awaken to show off how it's done. Revitalizing a game concept from the mid-2000s and giving it a fresh coat of paint, Nintendo told all indies to politely hold their energy tank while they showed them a thing or two with the latest in Samus Aran's adventures.
IO Interactive has been on a roll with the Hitman franchise, even wresting control from Square Enix and moving on to self-publishing with Hitman 3. With results as clean as one of 47's jobs, Hitman 3 winds up being one of the best entries in the series. Seeing this franchise as a murder simulation has always been an incorrect misconception, and Hitman 3 elevates its status as a gaming mainstay by elevating the gameplay and story to heights unseen and delivering unto us not just one of the best puzzle games ever made, but one of the best games of 2021. Also, you can kill a dude with soap. Enough said.
And now for this year's honorable mentions.
Game of the Year.
One of the best things about video games is how they can truly become cross-generational. And no, we aren't simply talking about your system of choice. We're talking more about the actual age of gamers who game. Many of us are in our 30s and 40s and still gaming. Some of us are parents of little gamers, and throughout the years, we've seen release after release try to appeal to all the factors of the differing ages. Us in the older crowd get the third-person, over-the-shoulder cinematic tour de forces with the fancy graphics and things that go boom very loudly. and the younger set is content with the latest Mario game, or the wealth of free and accessible indies like Friday Night Funkin' that, whether intended or not, manage to cater to all audiences.
Rarely, if ever, does a game come on out that says, here's a genre that's made for kids, but we're going to tell a very adult story in it. Deep within Psychonauts 2 is a game that has a narrative for the adult generation while having gameplay nuances that would cater to the younger crowd. It's a lot like Looney Tunes or The Simpsons. Sure, kids will enjoy it, but will they really get it? Probably not until they reach our age, and therein lies the brilliance of Psychonauts 2 and the vision crafted by writer and director Tim Schafer. Pouring a personal auteur vision into a story while still sharing experiences we can relate to is a tough job, but Schafer pulls it off so flawlessly than what can easily be considered his magnum opus. It took 16 long years to get this work done, and the wait was more than worth it.
Taking a 3D platformer and evolving it is a tough act to follow. While Nintendo has a knack for being able to march that ball forward every generation, in this instance, we have a unique case where another developer says, we can roll with this too. If something like Super Mario Odyssey was the showcase that platform games can still be fun for all, Psychonauts 2 is the showcase that the genre also has a place for an older crowd as well. It tells a story not just narratively, but also in its clever level design, with every stage metaphorically showcasing the traumas of the individuals whose brains you dive into. It is an extremely intellectual game made for an intellectual audience that has a story that everyone can relate to. It's something that was sorely needed this year in gaming for sure, and one that was especially poignant in the wake of last year.
If anything at all, Psychonauts 2, alongside the other games on our list this year, showed that the industry can continue to evolve even on pre-existing concepts. Just because there are new machines that can churn out super mega hyper graphics fests compatible with the latest format televisions and gaming monitors doesn't mean that it doesn't forget where it came from.
With its mature story mixed in a game that is made for all, Psychonauts 2 does the best thing it can do for an industry whose customers have been long burned by being nickeled and dimed on microtransactions and extra content that you must pay for on top of just buying the game.
It showcases an industry that still isn't afraid to move forward and innovate. And apropos to the world this year, Psychonauts 2 showcases the most important thing of all, a positive pathway towards healing.
Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us across social media for updates. Thanks for watching!